It can be a messy business to try to restore a relationship. And really, it's about righting relationship wrongs. So that's today's message, restore righting relationship wrongs. And I think about the word restore. I was contemplating the word restore this morning. And then I was thinking about store and then restore. Store and restore. There was a little convenience store in front of my house as a kid. And we would love to just walk down there and go to the convenience store because we thought we had it made because we didn't have to ask our moms to take us to the store to get a Slurpee. Some of you call them ices, but you're wrong. They're actually Slurpees. And down at the Sing store in front of our house, we could just walk down there, and it was just awesome. And I got a little older, and I wanted to try some things that were bad. Have you ever just wanted to just try bad things? Probably none of you people have ever tried that, one of that, right? You've probably never done that. Joan, you never really wanted to try bad things, did you? No, I didn't think so. And so I just wanted to try some bad things. So I was about, 10, I guess, 11. And I thought to myself, I bet I can steal a piece of candy from the store. I mean, it's not like they had cameras or anything like that. And I never forget going in there and kind of standing like this and trying to think I can pocket this candy. I mean, it cost 5 cents. I was just doing it for just the enjoyment of it. Just pocketing that candy Anybody else ever did that? See, I started my life of crime early. And then a few years went by, and I forgot about it. And then I started following the Lord in the youth group in our church. And the youth pastor was talking about forgiveness, and he was talking about asking forgiveness. He was talking about, you know where I went, right? At 15 years old, I had to go into the Sing store and say, when I was 12, I stole some candy. I need to pay for it. First I stored, then I restored. I took something, and I had to give back what I took. Well, old habits die hard. So the other day in Publix, I was eating something. I was shopping. I was eating something in Publix, and I was just going to keep the bag and let them ring up the bag up there. Only problem is, I got a phone call and I left Publix. I had to go back and restore again at 47 years old to go back to Publix, and I had to restore that which I took. And sometimes in life, there are people we have taken from, and we have to go back and restore what we've taken. God watches this stuff. God knows about this stuff. And so in Matthew chapter 5, verse 23 and 24, it says, therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar. Now we have these altar rails, and it's our modern day reference to the altars of the Old Testament. Of course, Jesus is writing the New Testament with every word that he speaks. But before he dies on the cross and is resurrected and the Holy Spirit comes, Jesus is living in the Old Testament period, and he is overlapping and creating the New Testament as he's living. And so he says about the altar, when he says offering his gift at the altar, they had a complex sacrificial system. And they had, you could go down outside of the temple and you would buy 2 doves for a certain kind of an offering. And you could buy a pigeon for a certain kind of offering. And when I say buy the pigeon for the offering, the doves for the offering, you had to go, and this animal would be sacrificed as part of your offering. Because it was a foreshadowing of, without blood, there's no forgiveness of sins. That sacrificial system was there so that we could see that restoration always costs something. And so God is saying here in this passage through his son, if you come and you're trying to worship God and you realize that your brother or your sister has something against you. And it's interesting because I'm reading this passage, and in fact, until I go back and really look at it, there's some times that I have got this passage mixed up in my mind. I mean, I memorize a lot of scripture, and then I have to check it because my mind will turn it into something it's not. And then I'm reading the book of First Opinions, not the Bible. And so you think about it this way, if you have something against your brother, go make it right. It's what kind of like it turns into in my mind sometimes, because it doesn't make sense to me in my natural mind that I'm just here at the altar. This guy's got something against me. That's not my fault, not my problem. But what does it say? If you're offering your gift at the altar to worship God and your brother has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be restored or reconciled to your brother. Then come back and offer your gift. That makes church take twice as long. It says, leave your gift there in front of the altar. And what this means is that God cares just as much about the other guy as he does you. And to a certain extent, you are your brother's keeper. You are your sister's keeper. You're offering your gift, and you realize someone has something against you. Because how can I worship God and be at odds with another one of God's children? Have you ever had a problem with a brother or sister or a friend or a coworker, and you sit down to eat and you're both there and you can cut the tension with a knife? Think about children and a father prepared a meal. They sit down and the father sees one child have something against the other child. And all the father thinks is, these are both my kids. Those are both my kids. I'm the one who prepared the meal for you. I'm the one who bought this table for you. I'm the one who put the clothes on your back that are on your back right now. I'm the one who takes you to school, picks you up from school. I do all these things for you. I'm sustaining your life. And I don't care which one of you has to go first. Would you guys just make peace? Because we need to eat. That's the idea of it. Matthew 5 verse 9 says, blessed are the peacemakers. And now, if you read this passage, you can't say blessed are the peacemakers. You got to say blessed are the peacemakers. That's blessed with some extra ed. Blessed are the peacemakers. Right, Ed? Some extra ed? Okay. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called amazing guitar players and fantastic school teachers. They'll be called sons of God. That's, if you didn't know, Ed plays guitar and teaches school. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. And there's two kinds of people when it comes to peace. There are the peacemakers, and then there are the peacekeepers. Any peacekeepers in the house today? What's the difference between a peacemaker and a peacekeeper? In fact, let's open that up. What do you think the difference in a peacemaker and a peacekeeper is? Anybody? Bless Ed. You know the difference between a peacemaker and a peacekeeper? Somebody help Bless Ed out over here. Yeah? Okay. All right, we're on the right track. That's right. Somebody else. Difference between a peacemaker and a peacekeeper. Yeah. I mean, you're getting closer and closer. You guys are good. Anybody else? Uh-oh, Madelon back there. Not Madelon, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Cedric. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just like he was tall, dark, and handsome in the distance. What you got? Never loses. They keep their peace. Well, a peacekeeper just wants it to be, no matter what happens, you just can't bring things up. You can't bring it up. Because it might cause someone to get upset. Might cause someone to have a conflict. A peacemaker is willing to have a conflict in order to resolve the problem. A peacekeeper is unwilling to have a conflict because of fear, even if it'll resolve the problem. Peacemakers and peacekeepers. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. And of course, Jesus Christ, the Son of God, did he come into the world and just smooth things over? That's what you love about Jesus. He just smooths things over. He just pushes things under the rug. No. Yeah. Jesus Christ even said it this way. He said, I'm called the Prince of Peace, but don't think I've come to always just keep peace. He said, sometimes I bring a sword. In fact, he was always willing to call out things, especially among the religious. Jesus Christ never said these words, well, it's just awkward. He never said those words. He never said, I'm just not comfortable with that. People use the word comfortable. I think that's hilarious. Like, the entire goal of your life is comfort? I'm not comfortable with that. That's your goal? Now, I have this image of a peacemaker. And it's kind of off color. Would anybody be offended by my off color? It's something that every one of you has done, okay? Has anybody here never, ever, ever floated an air biscuit in the room? Has anybody here never floated an air biscuit in the room? Well, Christy, are you having confession right now? Are you having confession right now? Joan, is it okay on that side of the room over there? It doesn't bother you at all, okay. Christy doesn't stink is what she's trying to say. You know how you can tell if you're really in love with somebody when you're first dating? If it doesn't even matter, you just let her rip. That's how you can tell you're really in love. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. And young ladies, if you're dating here, if you ever have one to let rip while you're on a date, let it rip. Let it rip. Let it rip, because it's very impressive to men. It's extremely impressive. I'll never forget the time a certain unnamed female in my life let one rip big. And I was a teenager. I was like, that's a good one. Didn't make them happy when I said that. It did not make them happy when I said that. Steve, we're talking about floating air biscuits in the room. Yeah. And Christy's making confessions over here. So, and so, when we talk about being a peacemaker, they are someone who is willing to walk into the room with the smell. They're willing to walk into the awkwardness. We kind of live in a world where if it's awkward, people just pull away, right? They can't handle the smell. And a peacemaker is one who's willing to go into the room with the smell in order to open the window and turn on the fan. Because otherwise, that stuff's going to stay there forever. And the couch is even going to smell like it. Willing to go into the place that's ugly in order to make it pretty. Willing to deal with the thing that stinks in order to make it clean. Willing to get their hands dirty in order to cleanse the house. To walk into the awkwardness. So here's some peacemaking points. The greatest enemy to peacemaking is pride. Because the peacekeeper would seem to be someone who's so sweet and humble and nice, but really the peacekeeper is a prideful person who is unwilling to have a little bit of pain in their own life or unwilling to risk a relationship because of their own pride about their own life. And a peacekeeper will keep things the status quo and never grow. But a peacemaker, the greatest friend of peacemaking is humility, because when you're humble, you say, I don't care what it costs me. I've got to make this right. I don't care if you don't look at me the same. I've got to confess it. I've got to deal with it. It might really change my life, and I don't really know what's going to happen after I allow this conflict to come to the surface. I don't know what's going to happen, but I trust God with it. That's humility. Humility is not looking at yourself like you're lowly. Humility is trusting God with your circumstances and your life. Proverbs 11:2 says, when pride comes, then comes disgrace. But with humility comes wisdom. With humility comes wisdom. And so today I want to give us some points on how to apologize with integrity. Now, I'm not talking about groveling, right? I'm not talking about begging. I'm talking about retaining complete integrity while doing the right thing. And so you're going to like these. Number one, admit to specific actions and attitudes. You know what people say sometimes? They say, sorry. Sorry. Not even I'm sorry. Just sorry. Well, who's sorry? I don't know. Someone. Could be me. Not sure. Sorry. You see the pride in that? See the lack of humility in that? When you name the thing, you're attaching yourself to the issue that has hurt the other person. And you're willing to be attached to their pain in order to resolve their pain. Admit to specific actions and attitudes. People will say things like, well, if anything I did hurt you, I'm really sorry. You want to say like, if anything. I mean, that's not the words of somebody who left their gift at the altar and are coming now to make peace in order to go back and worship God the right way. When you admit specific actions and attitudes, you're agreeing with the other person about their pain so you can help them resolve their pain and set yourself free. And so you say things like this. What I did was wrong. I'm not making excuses for it. Not if it hurts you, you say, I know it hurts you. You name it. Name the thing. It's painful to name the thing, isn't it? You don't want to bring it up again. But when you name it, you allow that person to have definition of how they're getting free. And that's that number 2 is don't make excuses. I love this definition of an excuse I heard years ago. An excuse is the skin of a reason wrapped around a lie. It's the skin of a reason wrapped around a lie. Oh, I love that one. Any other excuse makers in the room here today besides me? Man, a good excuse is valuable. I mean, it keeps your pride intact. It keeps you very prideful. I mean, you need to keep it that way. Excuses. Can you say it with me? Excuses, excuses. Excuses will always keep you go on the highway to hell. Excuses will always keep you hurting other people and never admitting it. So we tend to, if we're going to name a specific thing, we want to go back and say, we feel exposed and kind of raw in that moment if we name a specific thing, and we want to go quickly and cover ourselves. In fact, it's kind of automatic pilot to go and cover yourself real quickly. You say, well, I did that, but I was hungry. I did that, I was tired. Oh, that one, that'll get you, right? I know, I hurt you, but I was just so tired. I know, the dog ate my homework. The thing about excuses is this. When I make excuses, I lower my trust in front of the other person. But if I don't make excuses, I increase my trust in front of the other person. One time, Ronnie Reagan used to work for us here in the church office. And when we had the other jacuzzi baptism over in the corner, she was filling it up. She left the water running. And it ran, got up the top, and ran over. All over the floor. Now, she was up for a raise that week. She overflowed the baptism into the floor, all in the floor, on the same week she was up for a raise. But because I remember thinking to myself, what would honor God here in this moment? What would honor God in this moment? She was so sorry. And I said to her, you didn't know it. You didn't know anything about it, but you were up for a raise this week. Oh, no, she said. I said, so not like if we were at all considering not giving you the raise, the fact that you overflowed it, you made the mess, and you're dealing with it means we're absolutely giving you the raise. Because I want you to remember that you are loved here. And that I'm going to make mistakes and you're going to make mistakes. And that God is bigger than this. And I know this, that you'll work even harder when you're forgiven and given a raise. I know this about you. We will get so much more work now. We'll be so much more blessed. You're going to give so much more back. There's times at which excuses are the thing that throws you back out on the street when you could have stayed in the house. And for some people, literally, when they're trying to repair their family. Excuses throw them back in the street when they could have stayed in the house, when they're trying to reconcile their family. Number 3, accept the consequences. If I make just the right excuse, there'll be some least consequences. No. Accept the consequences. Have you ever been dealing with someone and they were caught in something and they admitted to and make no excuse about what they were caught for? Then a week later, you found out they did even more than that. And then they admit all that, make no excuses for it, and you think, okay, good. A week later, right? It just keeps going. And that's a person who doesn't understand that the better the confession, the more clear and open and totally humble that you are. The Bible says pride goes before a fall, but humility lifts you up, right? That's what this verse is saying. But a humble person, truly humble person, is willing to take all the consequences immediately. Because I can either choose what I do, or I can choose my consequences. But I cannot do the crime and not expect to pay the time. I've got to accept the consequences. Accept consequences early and often, and you'll spend less time behind the bars of consequence and their outcome. Accept consequences. Number 4 in apologize with integrity is change your behavior. This is the hardest one, isn't it? Like, I'm sorry, but I'm going to keep doing it. I'm sorry, and I'm going to continue. That's not sorry. Change your behavior. Now, when you think to yourself, well, changing my behavior is hard. Get help. Get help. How many organizations, books, sermons, accountabilities, and partners, and, there's this kind of anonymous, that kind of anonymous, the other kind of anonymous. There's even an anonymous for people who don't even know what they're anonymous about. There is so much help for people who want to change. If you want to change, you can change. It may take some time. But the main thing that allows someone to change is a desire to change. And sometimes you have to admit that you don't actually want to change. And sometimes you have to admit that the other person who you're forgiving doesn't want to change. See, there's a big difference in forgiveness and trust. There's a big difference in forgiveness and trust. Remember this. Forgiveness is about trusting God that He can heal me from what you've done. Trust is letting you get close enough to me and believing you won't do it again. It's a big difference. Restoring the relationship, it's on the side, in most relationships, it takes two to tango, right? Even if the other person is apologizing to you, you still may have some behavior to change. Actions speak louder than words. That's hard for me. It may be hard for you too. I love words. Like I love it when people tell me how sorry they are. I like to tell people. I like to make peace. But when the rubber hits the road, you find out who you really are. And everyone else does too. And that point, humility is so important. Humility is so important. Because if you're humble, you'll get help. If you're humble, you'll get help. If you're not willing to get help, it's because you're not humble. If you're humble, you'll get help. I heard this one time, and a person told me this in the middle of me just dealing with some painful issues. And I just felt so deeply like the other person had to make it right towards me. And this great friend said this: the person who hurts you can rarely heal you. The person who hurts you can rarely heal you. And they said, if I took out a knife right now and I sliced your stomach open, I can cut you, but I can't heal you. You have to have someone who is capable of performing surgery, and it's rarely the person who's willing to cut you and hurt you. And if I keep waiting and you keep waiting on the other person to heal you, and if you're holding on to your pain to make them change, you'll be holding on to your pain forever. There is a healer, and it causes the person who hurts you to even be more humble when you don't make them pay more than their own consequences in their own life. And you go to the healer who's not them. And you say, oh, God can heal me. And even when you're going to ask forgiveness and to restore the relationship, you still have to remember that same truth. That you hurt them, but only God can heal them. You can provide your humility in coming and changing, but you can't heal them and take away the pain from them. I mean, every one of us in this room has made some other people get closer to Jesus by our actions sometimes. We made them have to really need God because of us. And that's okay. It's part of it. It's part of it. And what goes around in that area always comes around. Number 5, ask for forgiveness. You know, people say things like this sometimes. Sorry. Like, you know, there are some people that just don't do forgiveness. They just don't ask forgiveness. That they were hardwired against it at some point in their life. Usually it's because they were shamed real bad by a parent, usually. And they don't ask forgiveness. They just don't do it. It goes against their opinion of themselves in some kind of way. And I wish they would. Because it's hard to give forgiveness to someone who doesn't ask forgiveness. And then the person who needs to give forgiveness is in chains. Because they want to give forgiveness. And they're trying to give forgiveness. Then they got to do their part of giving forgiveness and your part of asking the forgiveness on your behalf. And they got to forgive double because they got to forgive you for not asking. Ask forgiveness. There is a right way to ask forgiveness. You say, will you forgive me for? Don't say, I'm sorry about, because that's so vague and irritating. Forgiveness means a gift. It's for giving. Like, if you have a debt you owe someone and they release the debt, it's called forgiving the debt. That's what forgiveness is. It's restoring, forgiving, it's putting it back in the store. And so, ask for forgiveness. Will you please forgive me for the specific thing? It's just like at that moment, the chains come off and it's no longer tied. Number 6, last one. Accept the reaction without expectation. Accept the reaction without expectation. Back to, you can do the thing, but you can't determine the person's reaction to the thing. And the truth is, some people don't give forgiveness well. There are people who, when you ask their forgiveness, they take that as the opportunity to beat you up. And it's wrong. But you were wrong to begin with, right? Accept the reaction without expectation. When I go to all this point to ask forgiveness, I want you to like me now. Doesn't always happen, does it? Because in my life, I need God's power to help me with this. I need God's power to help me with this. I don't need to resist this. I need to accept what happens in life, ask forgiveness for what I've done wrong. I need to stop resisting God's process in my life. Stop resisting God's process in my life. This week I went to a pastor's conference up in Toccoa, Georgia, this beautiful pastor's retreat center. A lot of pastors from Columbus went up there together to bind together and think about our city and to pray and to be together and see God. But it was over on Thursday, and so I looked at the map like, there's a lot of cool lakes around Toccoa, Georgia. Lake Hartwell's right up the street. And I said, I'm going to take my boat. I took my little boat up there. And I went out on Lake Hartwell, Thursday, and then I loaded the boat up, and I said, I'm going to go to this other lake. And I looked at the map, and there's this gorgeous mountain gorge. That's the word gorgeous came from gorgeous. This gorgeous mountain gorge. It's called Tallulah Gorge. Yeah. And just below Tallulah Gorge, just below Tallulah Falls, in the gorge, is a power plant that flows into Lake Tougaloo. And it is deep in this mountain crevice, and it's hard to get to. But I found how to get to it. I found this little boat ramp, and I found a little place to stay. It's where they do rafting on the Chattooga River. It's the biggest rapids in Georgia like that. They're natural. I mean, I'm glad about our rapids downtown, but it's not the same as a natural river. And so that rafting river flows into that lake, and it's cool. And I found it all the way down this mountain roads, and I put my boat in at this boat ramp. It's a cool boat ramp. I engineered it to hang off the side of the mountain to get in. It's amazing. And I got on that little lake, and it's not a little lake, it's a big lake. And the water was so calm and so clean. It wasn't like driving my boat on water. It was like flying a plane in the sky. In fact, you could see the sky in the lake. And I knew that Tallulah Falls was on the other side, and I thought, maybe I'm going to get over there and see Tallulah Falls, but I didn't. It was the gorge that went up to the power plant at the base of Tallulah Falls. So I kept on going up this gorge and kept on going up this gorge. I got a picture here. I've learned to take a lot of boat selfies. I like it. What you got? See that in the way that it comes in on either side. And and then the water got a lot stronger coming down from the dam. And I thought, let me see if I can do this. Because there was you could see a little dock up there, almost up at the dam. And I thought, I might get stuck on the rocks or something. Because a couple times a year, they kayak down these falls and down this. And they can let you do that. But it was getting shallower and shallower and shallower, and I had to stay on one side, and the water was coming really, really, really fast. And I was able to aim my boat upriver and give it just enough pressure on the propeller. I was all by myself, too, so there was no net, nobody to help me, no nothing. It was great. And I got up there, and I look at this, and you see this little dock there. And those steps went up the mountain. What's up there? I was thinking, if that's the back way up to the little resort town of Tallulah Falls, and you can look over the falls from up there like, this is awesome. And go right up there. The problem is, there was a sign that said no trespassing. And it said the cameras on premises. But the sign, it wasn't from Georgia Power. It didn't say, usually Georgia Power signs say, in accordance with the state of Georgia, code, whatever, you'll be given this much time in prison if you come up here. Usually it says that. It was a no trespassing sign from Walmart. It was not that impressive to me. So I stayed there about an hour, opened my Bible, and I kind of just hung out for a little while, and I thought, nobody's here. Okay, so I got up on the dock. Yeah, I'm good. Okay, nothing happened. No attack dogs came out. I'm good now. So I thought, I've got to see where this goes. I also called Melanie's uncle, who used to work for Georgia Power, and he was stationed at some of these places. And he said, I don't know nothing about it, David. So I'm going to drop your name if I get caught. As he's kind of executive. And so it went up the mountain there. It's really cool, so I keep going. And then I ran into this guy. Now, he was not smiling when I first met him. He had a little different expression. We had to work him toward the smile, get him there. He didn't know he wanted to smile that day. So he comes out and he says, what are you doing out here? And, I said, you caught me. I did like that. And you got me. Take me in. He didn't laugh. He said, well, you just need to get out of here, blah, 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 blah. And I started walking away. He said, how'd you find this? Where are you from? I told him I'm from Columbus, and I was a pastor in Columbus. And I said, I'm just trying to be with God. And I found it because, like, I just looked on Google Maps. It was on Google Maps. It looked like water. It looked like fun. So I came. I mean, there's like one fisherman on this lake. People didn't know about it. I like finding unknown, undiscovered treasures. So then he says, Columbus. This guy says, Columbus. He said, I grew up in Phoenix City. My dad was a pastor in Phoenix City. I said, I know him. What's his name? He said, well, he was a pastor at Central Baptist. I said, oh, Brother Dex? He said, yeah, Dexter James, that's my dad. We're from up here. He's retired, and we're up here now. We came back home to where we're from. And I got his phone number. We prayed together. We've been texting back and forth. I made a whole video there, too, and posted it on YouTube. And this is what I realized when I was there in that gorge. Go to the next picture. That a lot of times I think about the power of the water because it drives the turbines. You know, all over the South, we have electricity because we have rivers. That's why we have electricity. And I was looking at this beautiful natural area. I mean, it's just such a stationary power. It's the power of nature just sitting there blooming. The power of nature with the rocks and the crevices. I mean, all down this gorge, there's waterfalls coming down on either side. It's the power of nature with this deep crevices that are there and the mountains that got pushed up by the lava thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. And it's just sitting there. And I began to think about the power, and so easy to see because it's a narrow gorge. I always thought about the power being in the water, but the power is not in the water. God created that land in a way that the water can do the only one thing water does. The only thing water does is it flows in the path of least resistance. The only thing water does. It's that ugly, because there's some places ugly. The trees are falling, the rocks are jagged. I mean, it's beautiful in a way, but another way it's untamed, it's unkept, it's chaotic, it's wild. Kind of like us, right? We're unkept, we're chaotic, we're wild at times. Sometimes our trees fall down. But we are the conduit for the living water of Jesus Christ. We are the conduit for the living water of Jesus Christ. And he is always going to go in the path of least resistance. The power is in the path. The power is in the path. The power is in the path. But I've got to get past my past to have power in the path. I've got to get past my past to get power in the path. That path of least resistance. And so where are you resisting today? Where I find myself resisting too often the things that are God's best and most beautiful answers for me. And so in your life today, if you want the power, you got to clear the path and not resist. Because when you ask forgiveness, you're clearing the path. When you give forgiveness, you're clearing the path. When you deal with the labels, you're clearing the path for the power of God, the living water of Jesus Christ to flow through. Let's stand up together.